those who perform their duties in a spirit of sacrifice to the Lord, their work then becomes Yagya. This cycle of rain and grain is taking place. Grain is coming from rain and the rain is coming from Yagya. Integral wheel of creation and the necessity for human beings who are parts of this society to realize the importance of leading their lives as a Yagya to God. Such Yagya not only satisfies God, it satisfies all the celestial devatas in his administration, and they automatically bestow prosperity upon such a soul. So that is why it is said, when somebody develops the spirit of Yagya, when somebody develops a deep aspiration to serve God for his pleasure, then the universe starts cooperating.
Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 3, Verse 14. Chanting is followed by translation and commentary by Swami Mukundananda.
Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhavaha yajñād bhavati parjanyaha yajñah karma samudbhavaha.
All living beings subsist on food, and food is produced by rains. Rains come from the performance of sacrifice, and sacrifice is produced by the performance of prescribed duties. So Sri Krishna is now revealing the wheel of nature and taking it to a different perspective from what the materialistic society views it as. In materialistic society, we try and maximize the grain production through our technology. For example, they had the Green Revolution in Punjab, India, so bring all the technologies of the West, and now people are going back to organic. Organic is now 3 times the rate of the other produce. So we are going forward and backward in all these experiments, but the material consciousness is you can maximize the grain by your own efforts. Sri Krishna is bringing in a different factor there. He says, Arjun, grains are produced from rains. And how do the rains come? The rains are a result of the Yagya that we perform. When we engage in Yagya, work in the spirit of sacrifice to God, the celestial gods are pleased and they bestow rain. So when society is God conscious, people are doing their duties in the proper attitude, then the celestial gods bestow material prosperity, and those phases in history are phases of prosperity, where there's peace prevailing. And when the cycle is not respected, when people are seeing Mother Nature as something for their individual exploitation, and engaging in such actions, how to extract the maximum from material nature, then naturally these celestial gods are not pleased and they withhold things, and then that prosperity naturally gets depleted. These celestial gods, we talked about them yesterday, the various devatas, Indra, Varun, Kuber, etc., who are participating in God's administrative system. they are also servants of God. They are elevated souls with the spirit of devotion to God. So when we engage in devotion and service, they are naturally pleased. So when we perform Yagya towards God, it's pleasing to all the devatas. And those devatas reciprocate by granting to us the things that we need to live a proper life and engage in devotion and make it a success. So that is why it is said, when somebody develops the spirit of Yagya, when somebody develops a deep aspiration to serve God for His pleasure, then the universe starts cooperating. The forces of the universe, they become friends, and things start happening naturally conducive to that person's personal devotion and work in the world. Why? Because that Yagya is pleasing these devatas who are also servants of God. So Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna here about this cycle. It's a very amazing cycle of nature. We people are eating the grain, and the body is being produced from this grain. See, the mud is getting converted to grain with the help of the rain and the sunlight. But what is that grain? It is a transformation of mud. It's another form of that mud. It has been transformed by God's technology. Modern science has not yet reached that level. No laboratory in the world possesses this technology, that if they are given mud, they bring the mud, enter the mud from one side into the machine and produce grain on the other side. This technology doesn't exist amongst human beings. It's God's technology at work. However, we must see it as it is, that ultimately this grain is also a transformation of mud. And we eat it, from that our body is created. So our body is also being made from mud. It is another form of that mud. That is why the Bible says that from dust you were made, and to dust you shall return. Now, when the soul leaves, the mud will return to its original form. All the beauty and polish of this body will cease to exist. It will acquire initially a grotesque shape. People will say, Jala do isko, burn this body, it has become mud. In Hindi they say, mitti ho gaya. So people are recognizing he's become mud. So then there can be three ends to this body. Krimi, vid, bhasma. Based on the culture and the religious tradition, people dispose of the dead body in various ways. Some people bury the body. But what happens? It gets converted into mud. You may put up boards. Here lies so-and-so, 1754. Who lies there? It's all mud. The insects came and finished it up. If you have any doubts, dig it open and check. It's become mud. And in some traditions, they throw it into the river or they leave it for the kites to eat it. Now all these creatures will come and eat it, and it will become the excreta of these creatures and go back into mud. In some traditions, they burn that dead body, and then you can see it with your eyes that it has disintegrated and gone back into mud. So the body is mud. It goes back into mud. There's an integral cycle with the grain, etc. in between. So the amazing cycle goes on and on and on. That mud becomes a human being, it goes back to mud again, it becomes a human being, etc. So in the same way, this cycle of rain and grain is taking place. That the grain is coming from rain and the rain is coming from Yagya. So Sri Krishna is reminding Arjuna of this integral wheel of creation and the necessity for human beings who are parts of this society to realize the importance of leading their lives as a yagya to God and performing their duties in that spirit.